Hello and good day from the AWS Theater at Hannover Messe. Now in its 77th edition, this show brings together more than 130,000 industry practitioners to share the latest innovations here and coming to industry. This year's theme is industrial transformation, energizing a sustainable industry, and key topics are around generative AI, industrial data ops, and driving positive ROI scenarios for new use cases. It's exactly what we're going to be talking about today, and I'm joined by Matthew Venter, John Harrington, and Ashtad engineer. Matthew works as a solutions architect at Gousto, where he leads the company's industrial IoT efforts. Prior to this, Matthew was a consultant, co-founded a company that built a frontline operations platform, and worked as a control systems engineer for international machine builders. John Harrington is the co-founder and chief product officer at HighByte, where he leads product management and customer and partner success. John has spent his 30 career both delivering software to manufacturers and working for manufacturers in operations roles. This experience has given him a unique perspective on how suppliers and end users each play an integral role in implementing new technology solutions. Ashtad is the worldwide leader of smart factory solutions for the auto and manufacturing industry business unit at AWS. Ashtad brings a deep and wide range of experience in his current role working across the technology value chain, in addition to that drawn from many years of senior leadership positions across the Adani Group, Schneider Electric, TCS, and Rockwell. Now, that's enough for me. Let's turn it over to our panelists, starting with Matthew. Matthew, get us started with a little bit about Gousto, your role, and how you're working with AWS and HighByte.
Thank you, Ryan. So yes, Gousto, we are an online meal kit subscription and delivery company. Our purpose is to build a product that has a positive impact on the planet and people. If you look at one of our core focuses within the technology element of our company, it's been centered around data and AI, which we use to drive the entirety of our operations. And we firmly believe that this focus has led us to having a market-leading customer proposition, where we're essentially able to offer more choice to customers than any other subscription service. If you look at my role, I'm a solutions architect, acting as the bridge between the business and the technology layers of our company. I've been here for 2 years now, leading our efforts in industrial IoT. In terms of where AWS and HighByte come into play, so one of the first things I did upon joining was I did a maturity assessment, looking at all of our existing, fulfillment technology, our plant floor technology. We did, maturity assessments and workshops with various stakeholders across the business, operations, engineering, and we started identifying common pain points. And the first things that came to mind was, we had dark areas of the factory, little to no visibility into those areas, and that was causing issues when it comes to operational efficiency. The second sort of problem set that we saw was we had a wide array of systems, devices, all installed by different vendors. So this maturity assessment really led us to building sort of an initial target architecture, and one of the key elements of that target architecture was HighByte, because we needed sort of an abstraction layer between Gousto and all these underlying operational systems. And HighByte allows us to do that, ingest data at scale, connect to a wide array of data sources, and then flow it out into our cloud infrastructure. If you look at why we went down the AWS route, was because of the wide array of IoT services on offer, the really good support model, and also if you look at this success of Amazon in fulfillment, that's sort of why we went down that route.
Thank you. Ashtad, how does AWS fit into this picture? Anything you'd like to add to what?
Especially from an AWS perspective, our focus on purpose-built industrial services and really helping manufacturers with their data and being able to rapidly innovate, I think is a key aspect of especially AWS in manufacturing. So we really feel the journey to it, and you mentioned Gen AI, right? You can do Gen AI if you've got a good data strategy. So a good industrial data strategy really supports the whole Gen AI stuff. And so we're really excited that a lot of customers today, especially manufacturing customers today, have a lot of data on our AWS infrastructure, and that actually gives us a good grounding on getting into the Gen AI stuff. And I think manufacturers like Gousto, perfecting their data strategy, industrial data strategy with partners like HighByte, I would say is a win-win for all, especially in the industry.
So I feel like we're in a period of rapid change, something that's not going away anytime soon, but it's important for us to level set. So maybe, John, given your central role in all of this that's going on, industrial data ops is a fairly new term, certainly to many people. So can you help share what is industrial data ops and where are we in the maturity of that?
Yeah, sure. So industrial data ops is really about adding business practice and system practice and discipline around the management and delivery of data. It's about curating data efficiently and delivering it across the enterprise so that companies can digitally transform. The challenges that we've had is, in the old days, we always talked about Industry 3.0 and the Purdue model, and all the data would stay in the OT domain, and you would move up a relatively simple model of moving it from the sensor to the device, the PLC, up to the SCADA or the HMI layer, and then to MES. That was relatively straightforward. Now with generative AI, now with the cloud, now with all these new applications that we're looking to fulfill, we really need to be much more disciplined about how we move data. We need to be much more efficient, and we need to curate that data for all those different use cases. And so industrial data ops is around putting that into practice and building a team around it, building processes around it, and using systems in it.
So another one's come up, at least to my attention, within the industrial data ops domain, and that's unified namespace. John, what is UNS?
So UNS is a new architecture that people are using to get access to data. And UNS is about taking that industrial data and business data, combining them into a common single system, and then making that available to the team. So it's not anything magic or special. It's about organizing and landing data in a single location that then the team has access to. Where we've seen, so in terms of how people are implementing that, is that a lot of people are using an MQTT broker, and they're using the ISA 95 structure, and they're landing data. So if you want to know the production yesterday of a line, you could go in there, you could subscribe to that, and each day you could get an update. If you want to do asset maintenance of an asset, you could go in there and find that data. It would be highly contextualized and highly organized because we've unified the namespace. And they can get access to that data. Or if you want to know what's the schedule of the manufacturing production, it's all in one place. So it becomes a very convenient location to manage the data and manage access to it.
It's really how you model reality and how you model data on how you run your business. It's not a force-fit function of you being able to jam the data the way your applications and systems are structured. So it really allows the users the flexibility on how they run their operations, at the same way help them model the same way the data in a manageable way where they run their operations.
This is fantastic. Matthew, maybe you can help us with a practical example.
Yep.
So in particular, I'd love to know how HighByte and AWS have changed your business, and then also how you might be using UNS.
Yes, certainly. So if you look at what we've deployed over the past year and a bit, we've essentially deployed a UNS architecture, which, as John and Ashtad have said, it's a unified namespace. If I dive slightly deeper into the technical components within the UNS, there's two elements. Number one being that abstraction layer, so abstracting Gousto from all these underlying operational systems, at scale, ingesting all this data, modeling it, doing a lot of data orchestration, and then flowing it out into the second element, which is our MQTT broker, which in our case we use AWS IoT Core as our cloud entry point. And we really see the UNS as providing so much foundational platform value that it's hard to sort of quantify what the value is. But we really see this as building foundational and so much indirect value across our company. And then once we've essentially established this, we can then start delving deeper into, okay, what digital products do we need within our company to start further enhancing operational efficiency? So things like SCADA, MES, we see these as nodes within the UNS ecosystem that subscribe to data, they create information, and then publish all this back into the UNS, and being able to do that at scale. If I look at specific features within HighByte and AWS that have really allowed us to do this so scalably, so things like templating, where we're able to essentially copy in parameters from our underlying data set, paste that into HighByte, and then have access to thousands of data points. things like dynamic referencing. So if you look at all of our underlying data models, we add contextual information, enterprise, site, area, line, cell. So, okay, this event occurred, here's the timestamp, but where did this event occur? And then with dynamic referencing, HighByte flows will essentially take that information into account and flow them out to the relevant topic. And that sort of justifies our ISN 95 structure. If you look at within the AWS environment, something that we use extensively is the IoT Core rules engine, where we are essentially able to route messages from IoT Core into other AWS services, into other digital products. And one of the things that we've really been able to do within that is not only focus on operational efficiency, but also internal productivity. So we're actually using that to build self-aware dynamic systems. So what I mean by that is we have a term called edge-driven integration. So a service we use a lot is Monotron, for instance, and I think this is a good example. If, for instance, tomorrow an engineer on the plant floor wants to go and install 30 Monotron sensors, all that information is automatically mapped into the UNS. It'll be surfaced in our data lake in near real time. We'll create those asset codes in our CMS solution, raise work orders if required. And that entire process is automated. You don't need a software engineer or a data engineer to do that. We've completely removed dependencies of that.
What does that look like in practice? So for the people who are doing the work, I'm wondering how much time it might have taken them before to achieve what you're talking about, and then now, how long would that take?
Yeah, well, if you look at one of the main targets within Gousto is improving productivity, and the way we see that and we'll measure that is reducing hours away from BAU activities. So now, when someone on the plant floor wants to go and do something, they're able to essentially do that, and there's no dependencies on software engineering, solutions architects, or data engineers. So in a way, it can really reduce time to market for a lot of these initiatives by days, if not weeks.
Wow. Ashtad, cloud has come up a few times, AWS specifically. There seems to be this notion, I hear it a lot around like a cloud-first mentality. I'd love to hear from your perspective the relevance of that notion and how cloud fits into the industrial data ops.
When I meet customers, when I see this cloud-first strategy, it's a slogan, I would say. It's really a slogan. Especially for manufacturing, it's about how do you really take the advantage of the cloud, and it's a more hybrid approach at the edge. And when I talk about in hybrid approaches, the edge, if you really see the edge, you start from the asset edge to the plant edge and then go to the cloud. So it's their data, right? And it's a slogan, right? So I really would like manufacturers to really transition into utilizing the real powers behind cloud rather than just an empty slogan. That's my take on it.
I think the power behind it is the scalability and the orchestration, and then enabling of solutions like industrial data ops to run at the factory, to be deployed rapidly, to be managed efficiently. That's,
With my experience, I'll tell you that it really sends shivers down the spine if you talk to OT guys and automation guys at cloud first, right? So it's just really managing a strategy which is a hybrid strategy from your edge into the cloud. And I think being able to really move that data right from your asset to the plant, to the cloud, and to orchestrate applications, orchestrate digital interventions, I think that is where the power of the cloud lies.
What do you think is most different in terms of the approach? If we look at what's happening today around cloud and this, the cloud mentality versus what industry was doing several years ago?
It's really harnessing, if you really see cost, for example. It's really a cost avoidance, especially from an infrastructure perspective. So we've seen MESs, we've seen a lot of plant gear out there. So when you want to scale, when you really want to scale in terms of your applications and data, that's the cost. Matthew talked about productivity, right? It's increasing it's basically percentage efficiency increases of a task or a function. So it's kind of like revenue per sales or getting to the problem faster. Just a typical Kaizen morning manufacturing plant, right? If I could get to the problem, say probably 2 hours earlier than us doing that with the data available, it's huge. Your rate of mean time to repair just starts like quadrupling. you've got operational resiliency, where we've really seen the resiliency of the infrastructure today, which is a true measure of the cloud, right? It really gives you the operational resiliency. And at the end of the day, you have sustainable operations. Why? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, you can now start measuring your energy consumption, your sustainability. So I would say in ways and means and shapes and form, that's where we have seen manufacturers really utilizing the power of the cloud for industrials.
And then you mentioned the problems, and I guess who finds the problem and how fast you get to a solution. There are a lot of factors in that equation, often involving a lot of different people and stakeholders, notably OT and IT.
Yes.
John, when we think about IT and OT maturity, and say with, let's do a scale, level 1 to 5, level 5 being like perfect, really good, everything's working together really well. Where are we when it comes to IT, OT integration and collaboration?
I think it definitely varies by company. But I don't think we're as bad off as a lot of people perceive. I would say that we're in a 3 to 4, and we're progressing that really nicely. However, the challenge is that the approaches need to change. So it's not just about getting IT and OT to bring their systems together and it just works. We need to use new architectures, we need to use new approaches, and we need to bring new job titles, new roles into the team so that it's more of an architecture and it's more of a collaborative environment. And then the systems like the unified namespace and industrial data ops to scale. Because as Ashtad was talking about, we've got all these new use cases that we're trying to solve for. And they're bringing together a lot of new business functions. So now we're looking at quality function, or we're looking at the sustainability function, or we're looking at the supply chain function. And how do we bring them into the mix and really deliver solutions at scale for them? So I think that we're making progress, but there's a long way to go. And in order to get to the Gen AI and the use of analytics, we still have some progress to go.
The approach to industrial data ops really with the environments which are really the OT guys, the automation guys know of. So like, for example, scripting. You can script in a SCADA, they've been scripting in MESs, and they're scripting in historians. You take that and make it as a low-code, no-code approach.
Right.
That's a change management which people at the shop floor and IT can converge to, and that really fuels the productivity, because the tools and the environment which are really familiar to the personas of IT and OT.
Going to a practical example, Matthew, how do you manage the cultural element of this, the human element of implementing, leveraging industrial data ops and getting teams to work together?
Yeah, so I think if I look at what we've done really well at Gousto from a cultural perspective is we form cross-functional teams. So when we have a specific company initiative or an introduction of a new digital product, we'll form these, we'll have cross-pollination ideas from varying areas of the business, whether that's operations, engineering, software engineers, solutions architects, data engineers. We'll all come together and have a cross-pollination of ideas, and then with a common goal of moving something forward. We don't really have a distinct divide between IT and OT. We see all of these elements as distinct digital products, each with their own roadmap, and objectives and key results. If you look at the second element that we do really well is we work in an agile manner. So we stay far away from waterfall approaches. We focus on a quarter-to-quarter basis where at the start of each quarter we'll have specific objectives as to, okay, what do we want to achieve this quarter? And then in order to sort of measure success and identify, okay, what does success look like, we'll have specific key results so we can actually measure ourselves against that. And then if I dive slightly deeper into sort of the UNS and all of our digital products, we treat those as distinct digital products, each with their own roadmap, each with their own set of unique OKRs, and then we'll ensure that each of these products will have their own technical owner to essentially drive it forward. And one thing that we do really well at is when we put a product into production, we'll have a lot of internal customers, engineering and operations, for instance. we'll ensure that we have that continuous feedback loop where they're saying, okay, this is working, this isn't working, and then we'll feed that into our agile processes of saying, okay, we need to iterate in such a way. Let's redefine our OKRs for the next quarter.
So have you always worked in an agile methodology? I'm wondering what are some of the changes that you might encourage others to consider in their organization to employ or deploy UNS effectively?
Yeah, I would definitely say working in an agile manner makes sense, being nimble. I would say that, the success of digital transformation, it doesn't need to take 5 years. You can really do it, and if you work in an agile way, you can start bringing value from a week to month basis. And even if you look at what we've done over the past year, I would say we evidence of that and proof of it. So I would really just say working in an agile way is probably the best approach, and maintaining a path to clear business value, but also understanding, the UNS itself provides so much foundational and indirect value to the company.
If I can just build on that, Ryan, Agile is so important. We don't have 3 years to deploy these systems anymore. And if we take 3 years, our business is going to change in the next 3 years, and we're going to have the wrong solution for it. So what we need is this agile approach, and we need to focus on, companies to focus on business value. It's not about landing data in the cloud. It's about improving operations. And so you look at it from the business problem. I need to improve business operations. Who's the person that's doing that? What's their persona? What systems do they work in? They're working in the Amazon cloud. Okay, now what data do they need? Now let's go get it, and let's get it there. And it's solving that problem and then moving on to the next one. That's what Agile is all about, as opposed to planning out and modeling your entire factory. Because by the time you're done, your factory's going to change. Because not only is the factory changing, but the data needs are changing. And with AI, as soon as you solve one problem, you want a whole new data set to solve the next one. So it's very rapid, and that's really critical for customers to understand. It's not about moving data, it's about solving business problems.
I love that. And I think what you said there is really important too, which is that data, it's about the data that you need, not the data that you have.
Yes.
Which means optimizing data for its intended landing place rather than where it's coming from, which is a complete mind shift as far as approaching data goes. When it comes to the ROI for data and industrial data ops, how should we be thinking about that, John?
So again, we see ROI comes in 2 key areas. There's making the business more effective, right? Solving those business problems. Is it predictive maintenance? Is it operational efficiency? Is it improved quality, improved yield? And in which case, data ops is a component of that. But there's lots of components of that. It's from the sensor all the way to the cloud and all of the people and the processes involved in that. But where we also see a lot of value is companies are saying, I have 60 projects. How do I deploy these faster? And companies are saying, if I just do this once with our old techniques, it's going to take me an entire year to deploy one project. And what we're seeing is they can go 10x faster now. So now with the same team, they can deploy that and get it in the hands of their business users across the entire factory. And then they want to scale that across multiple factories. So it's very much a scale, and if you think about one of the biggest limitations of moving fast is the IT team and the OT team resource.
Yeah.
We don't have enough guys like Matthew who are out there doing this. So we need to make them far more efficient than the old techniques and approaches were. And that's why if we can give them the right tool set, we're a software vendor, then he can move so much faster. And so it's making those OT and IT teams way more efficient, being able to handle vast quantities of data and process it and then deliver to the business user.
Okay, Matthew, I've got to let you respond to this. So from your vantage, what does success look like?
Yeah.
Is everything John's saying true? Do you see that in your business?
Yes, it's 100% true. And I think it comes down to really 2 elements. Number one, we see things around internal productivity. So, okay, this is our initiative for this quarter, but how efficient are we at delivery? What is our time to market? And how can we do that in the most efficient way possible, and then shift focus away from day-to-day BAU activities into actually building discrete digital products within our ecosystem that can then, we can see the benefits through our customer line. And then secondly, it's really about elevating operational efficiency across the board. So, okay, what is your MEC availability metrics? What is your OEE? What is your performance? And then using that as a guide to say, okay, this is where we are today. What initiatives do we need to essentially implement to get us to our end state targets?
Ashtad, in your customer base?
I mean, both John and Matt couldn't said it better. Start with something small, which is tangible, and get going. But plan for the larger picture.
Yeah.
And that planning for the larger picture with the tools like HighByte really allows the agility which Matthew can take. So you're shifting your optics from a data integration problem, because that's the underlying infrastructure, to a more data as a product. And I think that really is the ROI when you can start delivering in 6 weeks rather than 6 months. And today's tools allows you to start, because if you look at manufacturing today, the data structures behind that is fundamentally on 3 levels. One is an asset data structure, one is a process data structure, and one is a products data structure. So you might start with predictive maintenance, but then reuse it same way for a quality process, and reuse the same thing for an SKU track and trace, right? So I think it's exciting, and picking the right use cases with the benefits the business knows is really start driving value.
John, trick question for you. Who does industrial data ops not apply to?
Who does it not apply to?
I'd probably say no one, and that's why I say it's a trick question.
I would say no one. Actually, it does apply to people. If you don't have automation in your factory, if you're still what some people refer to as Industry 2.0, there's a lot of steps you can take before you get into industrial data ops, before you get into Industry 4.0. You need to put a base level of industrial automation and Industry 3.0 practices into place. Then we can move you into Industry 4.0 to drive additional business value. So I see it as a maturity thing.
Okay.
Every company ultimately will need it, but it's a maturity thing, and we do need companies that have well adopted the Industry 3.0 practices and are ready for digital transformation. If they're still in a highly manual, non-digital, non-technical approach, then there's other tools and approaches that they need to move first.
I love that perspective, and I think it's very timely and relevant for where we are now, because what, to me, that means is it's really about the maturity of the company more than anything.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
so much the size of the business. Like,
No.
this is not, it's not only the largest companies on the world. How many, what did you guys start? How many employees do you have?
Just under 1,000.
Just under 1,000. Great size company, high growth as I understand, but good evidence of the applicability of these solutions to a wide range of cohorts. There's another set of technologies coming to the fore that also seems to apply very widely to a different set of cohorts, and that's generative AI. Maybe, John,
Yes.
sticking with you, what does it look like to do industrial data ops plus Gen AI? Or maybe a future state.
So I was, when I think of Gen AI, I think of the Marvel movies and Iron Man, and he has Jarvis, which is his computer. And he can talk to it, and he can ask it questions. And even without him asking questions, it can guide him. It can say, you really need to look at this problem today. And that's what we need in the factory. The quality engineer walks in the door, and all of a sudden it says to him in natural language, you really need to look at this problem that came up on the line in the 3rd shift last night. Here's some information that you should probably look at. And it just starts feeding him information or her information very quickly. The only way to do that is to feed those models highly accurate and highly contextualized data. The biggest challenge with Gen AI at scale today is it doesn't have enough data. And the reason it doesn't have enough data is not because it doesn't have enough data, it doesn't have data that it can use. If we could make that industrial data usable, it would need far less data, far less storage, and far less processing. And that's the future of Gen AI, is that we need to contextualize, standardize, provide high quality data to those models, and then they can move much faster, and we'll finally have a Jarvis for every worker in the factory where they can get guidance whatever they're working on.
Do you think Gen AI will replace industrial data ops?
You need to feed the Gen AI good data. Gen AI will also be on Matthew's shoulder.
Yep.
It'll be on the IT and the OT team's shoulder, helping them out too. It won't replace them, just like it can't replace all of the people in the factory. I don't believe. A lot of our processes, we can't go completely lights out factory, but it can help everyone. It can help them be much more productive, it can help them be safer, and it can help them to just drive the business and produce value.
So as an enabler and an accelerator.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Matthew, would you agree with that? What's the strategy at Gousto in terms of Gen AI?
I think John said it really well, but we see Gen AI in two realms. So the first focus for us was around internal productivity again, which is a common theme within our company. So we've rolled out ChatGPT enterprise licenses. We've been using GitHub Copilot for developer productivity. And as I said earlier, we sort of measure this in how many hours can we save away from BAU tasks and improve the internal productivity. The second element where we look at this is with AWS, we've been doing a lot of internal hackathons using services such as Amazon Bedrock, where we use foundational models. And we say, okay, how can we then use Gousto's data to build our own LLMs? And we've been doing this through various hackathons, and this has actually defined some of our roadmaps now, where we say, okay, we've got this digital product, we actually want to start integrating LLM into it. So things like chatbots into our mobile app are things that are up and coming for sure.
So up and coming, what's the reception been internally?
So one of the things we do well at Gousto is we have these super days where we get various people from around the company. We go and do presentations, and the reception has been really good. So we've done a lot of POCs and MVPs. Everyone's been really behind from a developer productivity point of view. So it's been very successful thus far. And I think it's generating a lot of excitement, especially the next step, which is, okay, let's integrate an LLM into an existing digital product.
Tell me about any kind of pushback you receive. I'm curious to know how you might address that or recommend others do.
I think the only pushback that we get is, okay, from a data security and privacy point of view, but that's probably come from sort of our data governance teams, and it's very valid. But again, when you're working with AWS and using services such as Bedrock and using ChatGPT enterprise licenses, you can sort of add that security layer, and it gives you peace of mind.
And I think that's an important aspect of industrial data is security and privacy. As John alluded, Jarvis can go nuts and hallucinate if it's not being fed proper context and data, right? And I think that is the cornerstone of our services, is really helps customers give, first of all, choice of LLMs, and being really able to manage the security and privacy of their data. So the LLMs can actually start fine-tuning themselves with a customer's data, own data. And I think that is an important aspect in the cloud, which I do believe we are well positioned to address in the markets, and hence working with customers and working with partners to integrate that is a huge opportunity in front of us. And it's your data, right? And I think especially for industrial data, the whole reasoning and being probabilistic and that's the answers the LLM needs to throw out are more reasoning part of the LLM, right? And I think providing the LLM the context with their own data and industrial data and having that LLM trained is a huge factor in Jarvis coming alive.
It seems too that AWS has a unique position in the ecosystem, especially when it comes to generative AI. So I'd love if you could elaborate a little bit on your perspective on what is happening with Gen AI in manufacturing more broadly.
Yeah, so really we're seeing clearly really very document text-based, which is field maintenance. So Jarvis I'll just pick on Jarvis. Jarvis for maintenance, right? We're seeing a lot of our customers using it to really simplify the maintenance processes, if you've seen this problem before. So coming together of different data sets, maintenance records, times, the real-time data, really getting down into getting to the problem faster, right? So you put a chatbot in front of that data, and you can get down to, and you can speed up manuals and have field tests. So we see that. Second thing we see is in quality, right? As you were saying, we really see that quality control spec, product going out of spec, getting that feedback when the process is running, because the model's already learned from previous data of the SKU, right? So we've seen that. We're seeing customers deploying that from an R&D engineering perspective, when you're actually, because, hey, when there's a lot of data trapped in documents, there's a lot of data trapped in emails, because if you've got a large supplier and when you're designing the thing, it really helps you, get down to the nitty-gritty details of a design, right, of a product, right? So we've really seen that, aspect of the LLMs being used in review. So yeah, I mean, it's really spreading out there, but the focus is to really help the task at hand and the function at hand, which I think is huge in manufacturing.
Love it. And Matthew, given we've got some of your solution partners here up on stage, we've got to ask candidly, what does perfect look like for you in the next year or two in terms of achieving your goals and leveraging different solutions?
So if you think of what we want to do next, it's really about moving from a single site deployment to a multi-site deployment and being able to do that at scale. So as I say, we see the UNS as almost a platform capability that we can build on that drives internal productivity and drives operational improvements. If I look at more specifically about what we want to do this in the most automated way possible, and that's exactly what the cloud gives us. So if you look at all of the resources that we deploy within our cloud infrastructure, we have full CI/CD pipeline coverage, everything is automated. So if we want to spin up a new stack, we're able to do that at sort of a real fast pace. But we want to match that methodology for all of our edge deployments. So we still envision having systems and products which are running on edge, and we want to start using methodologies such as GitOps, where we'll have a single GitHub repo which acts as our single source of truth. If we start mapping changes from our edge infrastructure from staging into production, we merge that. We want our clusters sitting on-prem to essentially pull those changes down, and then we're effectively able to roll this entire suite of products and the UNS out across a network of sites. I think the last element that comes to mind is around machine learning, and now that we've laid the foundation of the UNS, we've got all this data feeding into our data lake. It's highly contextualized because of tools like HighByte. We've identified areas where we say, okay, this is a digital product that is very much computational based. We want to move away from that and move more towards ML-based workflows, not only to, as I said, to improve internal productivity, but also to drive further operational efficiencies across the board.
What does that look like for your customers in practice?
It means a lower cost per meal at the end of the day. So if you drive up efficiencies, that brings down cost per meal. We don't have any missed out loads, so they're able to receive their boxes on time and in full. Yeah.
And to Matthew's point, you really see the infrastructure is the price points which we have for the stuff which Matthew and our customers use. It's really being able to get that price performance in terms of security, privacy, and compute, at that level. So I think it really helped. It dovetails into the whole thing about getting it faster, and agility. So I think it's an important aspect.
Yeah, and if I just add to that, I think if you look at the last couple of years with the inflation that we've been having, because of all these digital initiatives that we've been, pursuing at Gousto, we've effectively been able to shield our customers from a lot of that inflation. And keep our price point down.
Yes.
And how has the reception been?
Well, our NPS is really, really good, so it seems to be successful.
So, John, thinking holistically here, where do you see industrial data ops going?
Industrial data ops becomes the data fabric for the business, and where I see it, in Industry 3.0, the focus was on applications. And Ashtad said earlier, now we're talking about data is the commodity, and when data is the commodity, we need a fabric to be able to move it efficiently. We're going to have workloads running at the edge, we're going to have them running in the data center, we're going to have them running in the cloud, and we need to be able to efficiently move it and move data contextualize it, prepare it, curate it for the use case, and deliver it. And it's kind of like it becomes the network. And when the number of nodes increases, the value of the network increases. And the nodes are all the applications consuming or creating data, and the network becomes the critical piece to all of them, and the way to manage and maintain that, and that's where industrial DataOps is. So it's only going to grow.
I feel like that's so much of our industry right now, like major growth mode with a lot of innovation happening in every corner. Thank you, Matthew, John, and Ashtad for a great discussion. I also want to thank our audience for tuning in. Remind you, great resources available at highbyte.com/AWS. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great conversation.
Yeah, great
Thank you very
conversation.
much.